the African Poultry Farming Academy that is powered by the African Resident Vet on YouTube. And here we basically focus on matters poultry farming from A to Z. And for today's lecture, we're going to check on a very critical aspect, that is nutrition. And perhaps you'd want to hang around and check why is it that important and what can you do to be able to save on cost, because you remember this is the largest expenditure, over 70% in terms of production costs, and therefore it would be important to know what to do. So straight on into the topic, we'll be checking on for the outline, we'll be checking on how to equip the farmers to design, manage, and evaluate feeds that maximize growth and production while lowering cost per kg gain. Additionally, we want to explain the nutrients and know what a starter, grower, layer, broiler rations are, and a price, storage, and FIFO, that is first in, first out, calculate FCR and cost per kg gain. And of course, we would also want to check the nutritional fundamentals, the ingredients that you require or that make up our feed, formulation, storage, cost control, and then we can have the Q&A. And of course, for the objectives, we want to explain the role of proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, and of course, formulate simple rations using local ingredients and premixes, apply storage, hygiene, and FIFO to reduce spoilage and aflatoxin risk, and of course, calculate FCR and cost per kg gain for decision making. Now, for this slide, then we can see a chick on the top left of that slide, and below here we can see crushed maize. You can imagine she is not eating much because the presentation of that feed is not right for that age of that bird. Perhaps this will be better for bigger older birds, maybe 3-4 weeks, but for a day old, like that might not be very palatable. And then on the right, top right, we see some birds in cages, though cages made up of wood, and we can see their trough is empty and they are laying some eggs. And of course, down here we can see top left, bottom left, we can see some layers in depleter, and the feed is available and they are consuming that. And of course, finally, bottom right, you can see some improved kienyeji trying to peck on maize. These are the different presentations of feed that are available. So why does feeding matter? I had mentioned that feed constitutes over 70% of total production costs and the single controllable expense. I'm saying controllable because there is something you can do about it, as we shall see in a few. So why proper feeding is important? It is because it drives growth, egg production, flock health, and profitability. Because if the birds are not feeding, you will not see growth, especially for broilers, and for chicks and pullets for the layers, egg production for the layers, flock health for all, and profitability because we are here to make an extra coin. And small improvements in feed conversion ratio produce large cost savings. You'll be able to see that in an example I'll be able to share. So the nutrient categories that we have are basically 5: proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins and minerals, and of course water. For proteins, we have, they are key for tissue growth, egg formation, and enzymes. Remember, tissue growth comes from the tissues that grow are coming from multiplication of cells, and these require the amino acids, of course, to adapt to that. Same case to egg formation, it is protein in nature, and the enzymes that work in the body to do the various functions of digestion be it protein digestion, carbohydrate digestion, fat digestion, etc., etc., or they are protein in nature. For carbohydrates, they are the primary energy source for daily activity. So if you don't have energy, then you'd imagine the birds will not be able to move around, to see, to walk, and to do whatever else the birds can do. Fats are concentrated energy, and they also help with fat soluble vitamin absorption. So that's a really loaded statement there. First part is concentrated energy. What do you mean? For example, uh, 1 kilogram of fat produces 2.5 times the amount of energy a kilo of carbohydrate would produce. I repeat, 1 kilogram of fat produces 2.5 times the amount of energy 1 kilogram of carbohydrates would produce. And of course, they also help with absorption of fat soluble vitamins. And the fat soluble vitamins are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. So that becomes very critical. So of course, vitamins and minerals are key for metabolic functions, for bone, eggshell quality, etc. So metabolic functions are the likes of the core enzymes. Here we have vitamin B1, vitamin B2, B6, and B12. For bone, we'll be looking at calcium and phosphorus. Same case to eggshell quality. Water is a forgotten nutrient. It is very essential, and birds drink 2 to 3 times the feed intake. And we say if you cannot take that water, don't feed it to your birds. Basically, here we want to see some of the ingredients that are someone can use, and what uh, nutritional value they have in terms of protein percentage and metabolizable energy. ME stands for metabolizable energy in kilocalories per kg. And of course, the ratios of calcium, phosphorus, and lysine. Lysine is an amino acid that is critical. So, for those who choose wheat, it has a protein content of 13% with a metabolizable energy of 3153. So we can see the levels of calcium, they are not high. So for corn, it has a lower protein content of 8.5, but a higher metabolizable energy of 3300 kilocalories per kg. For sorghum, we have a lower protein content, but higher than wheat, but lower than corn. Corn is maize, 3263. And of course, barley is has a protein content of 11.5 and 2975 kilocalories per kg for metabolizable energy. And of course, the rest are like that. So the first four are mostly what people use for as their sources of energy. So protein, quality, and amino acids. So essential amino acids are lysine and methionine. They are the most limiting in maize-based diet. And protein qualities matter more than crude protein alone, because we are checking at what amino acids are available for performance. If the amino acids are not available, then what will we see? The signs of deficiency we will see poor growth, feathering problems, low egg size, or number. So when you see poor growth in your broilers, yeah, when you see feathering problems, when you see low egg size or number, then something is wrong with proteins. Energy balance principles. We know that when energy is too low, you see stunted growth and poor feed efficiency. When the energy is too high, you will see excess fat, reduced egg production efficiency. So what you want to do is to match energy density to the type of bird and the production stage for optimal FCR. So what we are saying is there are different energies for different types of birds, layers, broilers. Again, in broilers, there is the starter, there is the grower, and there is a finisher. And for the layers, there is the chick mash, then the grower's mash, and finally the layer's mash. And for kienyeji, of course, there could be similarity to the layer's mash or the layer's feed, but of lower quality, as it were, because the nutritional demands are not too high. So balance the energy density to the type of bird and production stage for optimal FCR. And then we had seen that, right? For there is something called anti-nutritional factors. We want to see what are those that are in the different proteins. What are the main nutritional factor? So for soybean meal, with a protein content of 48% and 2557 kilocalories per kg for metabolizable energy, we have uh, anti-nutritional factor called trypsin inhibitor. For canola, with a protein content of 37.5 and 2000 metabolizable energy per kilocalories per kg, we have glucosinoates. And for cotton seed cake with 41% protein content and 2350 kilocalories per kg, we have gossypol. Sunflower has high fiber, and we can see it has 2205 and 46.8 for metabolizable energy. And then peas has a trypsin inhibitor, and lupins have a toxic alkaloid. So the reason as to why you find a feed with soybean, with canola, with cotton seed cake, with sunflower is to try make sure that you do not have one of these inside. Yeah, of course, sunflower with the high fiber, then with fiber, then you could use something like enzymes like phytase or something like that, just to reduce the fiber content and help the bird be able to get value. Of course, the feed you want it wholesome, so you want to make sure that everything is taken care of when it comes to matters nutrition. So that's much like it. And so for ricin, then we can see that soybean has the highest percentage at 3.2, then followed by canola with 2.2% ricin, cotton seed cake 1.7, and then lupins 1.7, and finally sunflower and peas at 1.6% ricin. Yeah. So water becomes critical. I had mentioned and that birds drink 2 to 3 times the weight of feed consumed. Therefore, if the birds, for example, are consuming, say for the layers, those that are on down on deep litter, if they are consuming 140 grams of feed every day, you'd imagine that they are consuming somewhere around 280 to 450 or 500 mLs of water every day, so that they can be able to digest that feed. We are saying that the water should be clean and accessible to improve digestion, feed intake, and medication delivery. Yeah, because digestion requires an optimum environment where the nutrients are dissolved in an aqueous solution, from where then they can be absorbed or transported to the rest of the body. And of course, medicines, be they supplements, vaccines, supplements, antibiotics, dewormers, they will get through the water into the body, so that becomes critical. Again, it is paramount to monitor temperature, cleanliness, and flow rate daily to ensure that the birds are well taken care of and that they are okay. They can consume enough, and there are no challenges towards access of water. When it comes to type of birds recommended, the amount of water intake and height of nipple, we are saying for the day-old chicks, they would consume anywhere daily water between 150 and 100 ml every day. And for the rearing hens, these are the ones that are growing, they would consume somewhere between 150 and 250 mLs of water. And then for the rearing hens, they would consume somewhere between 200 to 300, and broilers at finishing between 400 and 500. That is what we are talking about. And then down here you can see a chick that's getting to know a nipple, and then a kienyeji bird here that's enjoying some water outdoors. Common energy ingredients, you have maize, the primary source. Watch for aflatoxin. Sorghum is drought tolerant. It's an alternative. It may contain tannins. Cassava has high energy raw protein, requires processing to remove cyanogens. And wheat bran has lower energy. It is useful as a filler or fiber source. Yeah. For protein, for common protein ingredients, we have soybean meal. It is a high quality, widely used. Sunflower cake, it has lower lysine than soybean, so useful locally. Fish meal or omena, we have excellent amino acid profile, expensive but effective. And finally, black soldier fly larvae, it is an emerging sustainable protein source. For minerals, vitamins, and so for these ones we have limestone. It's the primary calcium source for layers. Like calcium phosphate supplies calcium and phosphorus. Salt is electrolyte balance, small inclusion needs daily. Vitamin mineral premix ensures trace minerals and vitamins are met consistently. So that becomes critical. And then we have the nutrient type, main functions, signs of deficiency and best sources. Fat soluble vitamins are ADEC, A, D, E, and K, and very critical for growth, vision, body health, and blood clotting. The signs for deficiency are poor growth, weak bones, bleeding. The best sources include fish oil, green-fed seeds, like that. So for water-soluble vitamins, before we get to water-soluble vitamins, there is something that is very critical when someone is going to shop for a vitamin or a multivitamin, as it were, because the quantities of vitamin A and vitamin D3 in this case become very critical. So when someone is out to shop for a good quality vitamins, you find that the majority of the vitamins, vitamin A, the concentration is given in terms of international units, like the concentration of vitamin A in that particular supplement. So some good supplements would even supply as high as 45 million international units of vitamin A, meaning that the concentration is too high and everybody will receive some. And you find that for vitamin D, D3, then you would find 12 million international units. So that becomes critical for the development of vitamin A, for the development of vision and the alimentary tract or the gut. And then vitamin D3 helps with the calcium metabolism. So if it is missing, then that's where you'd have weak bones. Yeah. And of course, vitamin K is critical to enable clotting. If it is if there is a deficiency, then you would see incidences of bleeding. For water-soluble vitamins, we have the B complex and vitamin C. These are for energy use and nerve function. Energy use here refers to the metabolism that we have, because they are coenzymes. They work together with the enzymes to optimize enzyme function. And so if you have deficiency of B complex vitamins, you'd see poor appetite, curled toes, and skin issues. And then sources will be brewer's yeast and grains. That becomes critical. For macro minerals, these are minerals that are required in large quantities. We have calcium, phosphorus, sodium, and potassium. Then these are critical for bones, eggshells, and nerve signals. And deficiencies would lead to thin eggshells or weak legs. and a good source will be dicalcium phosphate and limestone. For trace minerals like zinc, manganese, copper, iron, and selenium, they are critical for enzyme function and immune health. And deficiency would lead to poor feathering, anemia, stripped tendons, and mineral premixes and chelated forms become good sources. Then we have specialized nutrients like choline, very critical for liver health and nerve function. Deficiency, you'd see stripped tendon or perosis, and choline chloride supplements such as what we have in some good river tonics would come in handy. Feed additives, we have enzymes, they improve digestibility of non-starch polysaccharides. We have probiotics and prebiotics, they support gut health and nutrient absorption. So probiotics, these are good bacteria that would rather be introduced into the gut that help with the function of good function of the gut. Prebiotics are the food for bacteria, and they are critical to make sure that the good bacteria survive. Coccidiostats prevent coccidiosis in high-risk frogs. Antioxidants and mycotoxin binders protect against field spoilage and toxins. Then we have others like phytase, probiotics, prebiotics, organic acids, fatty acids, and synthetic amino acids. These are also critical because they help to make sure that the feed that the bird is consuming is properly digested, and that there is for organic acids, there is creation of an acidic pH in the gut, one to kill the microbes and two to help with digestion of proteins, as it were. Then for fatty acids, we have emulsifiers that help break them down, making them available for metabolism. And we said 1 gram of fat is equals to the energy produced, it will be equal to 2.5 times the energy that will be produced from a gram of carbohydrates. And then we have synthetic amino acids, and these become critical, especially because the birds are growing and they need to be supported with high quality amino acids. So these are some of the additives that you'd have. Then we have DCP here, then this could be the ground form, others like ricin and others. So anti-nutritional factors, we have aflatoxin. In poorly stored maize, it causes liver damage and reduced performance. That becomes very dangerous because the liver is the center of metabolism. So if the metabolism is not occurring properly, then you would have reduced performance. Gossypol is found in cottonseed and can impair growth and fertility, so you want to deal with that also. Tannins are found in sorghum, they reduce protein digestibility, so you have to make sure that you are introducing, you are creating an environment for protein digestibility. So mitigation, you test the ingredients, you do proper drying and storage, and you use binders for the aflatoxins or safer alternatives, as it were. So here at this point we want to check the type of feeds and the target nutritional values for the different ages. Then for the starter, this is 0 to 8 weeks. For layers, we are talking about 18 to 22% protein, high quality amino acids, because this is where growth is happening. For the grower, we are talking about 8 to 20 weeks before they come into lay. The protein content reduces to about with about 2%, moderate energy and fiber. For the layers, the protein content reduces again to 16 to 17%, but calcium increases to 3.5 to 4% for the eggshells. And for the broiler faces, we have starter, grower, finisher with increasing energy density. Now this becomes what I was just talking about. So for the mash, chick mash, Rea's chick mash, growers mash, and Rea's mash, we are going to see the difference. Here we have Isa Brown, and we also have Hyrain Brown, and as the main breeds that are here in this category. And the stages, we said it is 0 to 8 weeks for the Rea's chick mash. The moisture content must not exceed 12% across the feeds, because above 12 would encourage growth of mycotoxins such as aflatoxin. For the crude protein, we are talking about 18 to 20%. This is key for energy, for frame and muscle growth, and higher than broiler starter because the growth is slower. Yeah. For the metabolizable energy, we are talking about 2750 to 2850 kilocalories per kg. If it is too high than that, you have early fat deposition and it affects rate. So for crude fat, 3 to 3 to 5%, and then the others are crude fiber, maximum 5%, because it can't handle high fiber yet. The gut is not developed properly. Ash, these are aminos, 6 to 8%. Then we have nutrient-free extract. We are talking about nitrogen-free extract or carbs, 55 to 60%. And finally, calcium, 1 to 1.2%. Too much calcium will damage the kidney, so you do not want that. For the growers mash, the ages are 9 to 18 weeks. Moisture content below 12%, protein content 15 to 17%. Excess protein is wasted and will lead to wet treater. So be keen when you see wet treater and the birds are not sick in any other form. Imagine that there could be excess protein, and protein being the most expensive, why waste it? For metabolizable energy, we are talking about 2700 to 2800 kilocalories per kg. And so for crude fat, we are talking about 3 to 4%. For crude fiber, the maximum is 6. The gut here is more developed and can handle more fiber. For ash, these are amino 7 to 9%. And nitrogen-free extract, we are talking about 60 to 65%. For calcium, 1.8 to 2.2%. Calcium rises to start building medullary bone for eggshells. What is happening here is so the reason why we are increasing the calcium content is because there is something called the medullary bone that helps in calcium homeostasis. What basically that means is there is the calcium that is in the bone and the calcium that is in the blood. So if we do not have a way through which the calcium can move to the bone or from the bone to the blood, then that becomes a disaster at the point where perhaps the daily calcium intake is lower than what is required. What is in the bone can be mobilized to the blood. If whatever is availed in the diet is more, then that the excess calcium can be moved to the bone. That's what we are talking about. For the rears mash, these are 19 weeks to carrying, which could be 1.5 years. That is around this is 52 plus 26. That could be around 78 weeks thereabout. So in total 20 weeks plus 72, that will be around 98 weeks, so nearly 2 years of the life of that bird. But when it gets to about the production goes to maybe between 50 and 60 later in life, then start thinking about removing those birds from the farm, because they'll be consuming more than they are giving you. Yeah, so moisture content must not exceed 12%. For crude protein, we say 16 for 80% 80% lay, but you can do 18% if the egg size is small. Yeah. For the metabolizable energy, we are talking about 2750 to 2850 kilocalories per kg. The energy is for egg mass, the number. How many eggs are your birds be able to produce? Birds eat to meet energy needs first. So they eat so that they can move around, they can survive, and then they are not growing at this stage. So after maintenance, the next is egg production. So the energy here at the grower stage is for growth, for maintenance and growth. The energy here at the rear chick is for growth and maintenance. That becomes critical. So for the crude fat is 3 to 5%. The maximum fiber is 6%. For ash or minerals, we have 12 to 14%, high due to calcium carbonate. That's critical for the eggshells. And for, of course, for the nitrogen-free extracts or carbs, we are talking about 55 to 60%. That becomes critical. And for calcium, we have 3.5 to 4%, critical for eggshells. And each bird is supposed to consume 2.5 grams of calcium per day at peak ray. That becomes critical. So without having this information, your layers will not, whether chicks or growers or the layers themselves, will not be performing well. And the feed is very specific for every category because every category has a different need for energy, for protein, for nitrogen free extract, metabolizable energy, etc. So coming now to the broiler, it is critical to understand that here we have Cob 500, Rose 308, Aboacres and Hubbard, and the categories are for the feed are 3: broiler starter, grower pellets, and finisher pellets. And for the starter, these are cramps as opposed to mash. Yeah, so for the stage, it is there are people who do 2 stages. One, they do broiler starter and finisher pellets. Others do broiler starter crumbs, grower pellets, and finisher pellets. And each of them has a different way. Three-phase diet, because there is gradual introduction, therefore perhaps the performance would be slightly better, but maybe you spend some more amount of feed. But whichever strategy you use, the details are inside here. So for the stage for the broiler starter crumbs is 1 to 21 days. The moisture must not exceed 12 to avoid growth of mold and therefore aflatoxins. For the crude protein, we are looking at 22 to 23%. 23% for fast growth breeds. The limiting factor for array weight is when the crude protein is low. And then the metabolizable energy is 29 to 3000 kilocalories per kg. Crude fat being 4 to 6% to boost energy density. Crude fiber must not exceed 3.5% because the chicks can't digest fiber well. The ash is 6 to 8% minerals. So, but now, if the people who are selling the feed want to con you, they would use sand or fira, and then you would have high ash. So nitrogen-free extract, these are the carbs, you would get 50 to 55%. And then for calcium, you'd have 1 to 1.2% for bone development. Phosphorus 0.45 to 0.5 for bone and adenosine triphosphate for energy, and methionine and cysteine you'd have 0.9 to 0.95 for feathering, immunity. They are the first limiting amino acids. Lysine drives muscle growth. You need that at 1.2 to 1.25%, and aflatoxin must not exceed 20 parts per billion. ppb means 20 parts per billion. For the growers, grower pellets, we are looking at 22 to 28 days. For the moisture not exceeding 12%. For crude protein, 2021, a drop of 2% from the starter to cut costs. For the energy, you are increasing it from 3050 to 3100 kilocalories per kg. Raise energy so birds eat less for same grain. So for crude fat, you are increasing it to between 5 and 6. The fiber, a maximum of 4. The gizzard is mature now. And then for the ash, 6 to 8%. For the nitrogen free extract or the carbohydrates, we have 53 to 58%. And then for calcium, 0.95 to 1.05, a slight drop from starter. And of course, available phosphorus to be between 0.4 to 0.45, and methionine and cysteine at 0.8 to 0.85, ricin for muscle growth to be at 1.05 to 1.1, and aflatoxin not to exceed 20 parts per billion. For the finisher pellets, then we are looking at 22 days to finish. Finish here would mean either 28 days or 35 or 42. Yeah, so that is what we are looking at. So you could start from broiler 1 to 21, then go straight to finish at 22 days and continue, or you start at broiler, you go to the grower pellets, and then finisher pellets at 28 days as you continue. So you would choose that. And here we are looking at a maximum of 12% for moisture content, 18 to 20% for the protein content. You realize that in terms of crude protein, it is reducing from 22% to 20% to 18%. But for energy, we are starting at 29, then going to 3050, and then going to 3150. Yeah, so that is important. The highest energy phase is for the finisher pellets, and you can see that they require that to be able to do their thing. So moving on, the crude fat to be 5 to 7%, maximum fiber to be 4.5%. For the ash, 6 to 8%. For the nitrogen free extract, 55 to 60%. For the calcium, 0.9 to 1%. For the available phosphorus, 0.35 to 4%. For the methionine and cysteine, 0.75 to 8%, still critical for breast muscle. And ricin at 1 to 1.05, and of course aflatoxin to be a maximum of 20 parts per billion. That was a loaded slide, but it's helpful to help you do your thing. So rare feed, focus on calcium. So calcium should be 3.5 to 4% in rare rations for strong eggshells. Sources are limestone or ground or as free choice. Great for rares. The timing: increase calcium slightly during peak ray and before night when shell forms. That becomes critical. So for those who are doing calcium supplementation, instead of doing it in the morning, it would be better to do it in the evening, so that during the night the shells will be forming for the eggs that will be laid the following day. That becomes critical. So for feed mixing and hygiene practices, here we use clean calibrated scales for accuracy, then mix in clean containers to avoid cross-contamination between medicated and unmedicated feeds. And after using, clean equipments and keep the mixing area dry and rodent-free. Rodents are dangerous. They will come to eat your feed, they will also contaminate it and cause transfer of diseases. So the machines that you would need for the feed mixing, for those that would prefer to use their own, I always advise you take control of the process, and the best way to do that, since we agreed that nutrition is the most controllable expenditure. So how do you control? By making your own feed. How do you do that? You'd need at least 2 machines or 3, depending whether you are doing layers or broilers. If you are using layers, then you would need 2 machines. That is a feed crusher to crush the maize, the sunflower cakes, and the rest of the cakes that you have, and then the mixer now, where you put in everything, the amino acids and all the additives to have a feed for your bird. But if you're using if you are making feed for broilers, then you need to pelletize them, and that's where the pelletizer comes in, or the pellet machines, as the third one, as shown here. Storage and aflatoxin. Store feed in dry, ventilated, rodent-proof rooms off the ground. Fast in, fast out to prevent long storage times. Inspect for mold of odors, cramping, and discard feeds, or use binders if tested safe. So what we are talking about is that you need to store them in a dry, ventilated, rodent-proof and off the ground. Off the ground and off the walls. You can use pellets to make sure you are off the ground. You can do a 15 centimeters away from the walls to make sure that they are not getting wetness from that. Fast in, fast out. Those that came first are the ones that will be consumed first. The ones that will be supplied later will be used later. Otherwise, if you reverse, then maybe due to storage, improper storage, or maybe high turnover at the farm for the staff, that would become very dangerous. So if you're not storing properly, and maybe the place is wet, what are those mycotoxins that would attack your feed? We have 3 main categories: aspergillus, fusarium, and penicillium. For aspergillus, we have aflatoxins, we have cyclopiazonic acid, we have glyotoxin, we have sterimatocystin. So for fusarium, we have trichothecins, zearalenone, fumonisin, and for penicillium, we have ochratoxins, or citrinin, and mycophenolic acid, penicillic acid, and pachylin. So that becomes critical to take care of, but then you could use mycotoxin binders, which could be binding all this to make sure that your feed is safe for your birds, because aflatoxins damage the liver and they impair immunity, so you don't want the liver damaged at that point. Feed management to match each stage. You use appropriate feeder types and heights to minimize spoilage. You feed in small frequent amounts for the chicks, avoid overfeeding. You monitor dairy consumption and adjust rations for the flock condition and weather. So for the chicks, you could use the trays, the shown on my left and on the bottom right. And then for the other grower stages, then you can use each of these, and you could raise to a level that it would be the same level with their back. The height of the feeder to be at the same level with their back, or the bottom of the breeder, or the feeder, so that they just raise their necks and peck from that feed to avoid contamination. That becomes critical. But for the chicks, day-old chicks, maybe to somewhere around 3 days thereabout, you use the trays, and of course these are the one on the bottom right. Cost management and record keeping. Track feed cost per kg and FCR. Feed intake is equals to weight gain. FCR is feed intake divided by weight gain weekly. You compare commercial feeds versus home mixed cost, including labor and premise cost. The simple records you keep are date, feed type, quantity, flock weight, mortality, and FCR. That becomes critical because you want to know how the feeds are performing, and if you do not measure, you do not know. So therefore, it becomes important to measure. Plus, the batch number if you are buying, because if there is any issue with that batch, it's easier to complain with a batch number. This is usually some paper or an insert that is usually in the bag of feed, so that becomes critical. Alternative protein and feed where would be, what are the alternatives to these feeds? We have black soldier fly larvae. They are high protein, locally producible from waste. Omena and fish meal, excellent amino acid profile where available, but again, the quantities you want to use, you do not want to use too much omena on the broilers, otherwise the broiler would be tasting like fish, or it would be having a fishy smell. In the same case, you do not want to use a lot of omena on the layers, because the eggs, similarly, they would be having a fishy smell. So you limit how much you're using. So for kitchen waste and green fodder, you supplement, but balance for safety and consistency. And hydroponic fodder is a year-round green feed to reduce cost and improve gut health, especially for improved kienyeji and kienyeji. There is also azora, and on the image on the left is a black soldier fly larvae. At the center here we have azora, and on the right we have hydroponic fodder. Basically, this is wheat that has been kept in trays, and you allow it to stay maybe for between a week and 10 days, and then you'd have feeds that amount. So how to calculate FCR and feed cost per kg gain? The formula for FCR is total feed consumed in kgs divided by total weight gain. Alright, so the cost per kg gain is equals to feed cost per kg multiplied by total feed consumed divided by total weight gain. For example, if the feed cost is 80 shillings per kg, the feed consumed is 1200 kgs, and the weight gain is 1000 kilos. So the cost gain per kg is 80, which is the feed cost per kg, multiplied by 1200, which is the feed consumed, divided by 1000, you get 96 kilograms per kg gain. That becomes the cost for you to be able to gain 1 kg. Now, feed conversion ratio equals to feed consumed divided by total weight gain. So in this case, we have feed consumed is 1200 kg divided by 1000 kg, and you get 1.2 as the FCR. So this FCR, if it is more than 1.7 or more than 2, you are making losses. We want it somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5, so that then you consume less feed but convert all that into meat. You are in business. And then troubleshooting and common problems. Raw intake of feed could be as a result of water or heat stress or disease or palatability. Poor growth, protein quality, amino acid balance, and mycotoxins could be the issue. Thin shells or soft eggs could be calcium supply and vitamin D status. And the high mortality will investigate feed contamination, aflatoxin, and infectious disease. So takeaways: feed efficiency drives profit. Small FCR improvements matter. Use local proteins where possible, but ensure amino acid balance. Store feeds properly and apply FIFO to prevent aflatoxin. Keep records, feed use, FCR, cost to guide decisions. Next step: implement one change this week and record the results. Thank you very much for your time. Once again, I'm Dr. Paul KANG'ETHE. Feel free to visit our YouTube page and run these and much more. And of course, We would be honored if you'd share that content with your friends, and also comment and share as well as like, because this is how you encourage us to continue doing this. Once again, we appreciate your time, and I hope you learned a few things, and maybe on the comments you can drop what is that you learned from this particular lecture. See you in the next one. Bye bye.